Good morning. Today is Tuesday, June the 8th, and we're here for the Committee of the Whole. We do have some liquid sunshine outside today, but it's still a great day to be in Macon-Bibb County, and apologize for getting started a few minutes late, but we have some inclement weather downtown, what I call inclement weather because I'm going to get wet. But we are here now, and we're ready to proceed, and we do have a good agenda today with multiple important items on there. We're going to begin calling this meeting to order with the approval of the minutes. The minutes of the Committee of the Whole from May the 25th, 2021. Can I get a motion to approve? Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Lucas. Any discussion in those regards? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We did have a proclamation this morning. We are going to continue that proclamation for some unfortunate circumstances overnight, so we'll look forward to doing that at a later date. We do have several new alcohol beverage licenses on the agenda. We'll discuss those one at a time and deal with them accordingly. The first one is a new alcohol license for SHIV 786 LLC located at 4505 Broadway, Macon, Georgia 3126. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second on Commissioner Wynn. We have a motion and a second. There is a picture of the location up on the screen now. Is there any discussion in that matter? Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item B, which is new alcohol beverage license from Macon-Beverage LLC. DBA is a beverage south located at 4375 San Carlos Drive, Macon, Georgia 31206. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by, who is that? Commissioner Tillman. We have a motion and a second. Any question in regards to this license? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is new alcohol beverage license for Sprint. Is that 5 or S? Sprint 5, located at 3927 Napier Avenue, Macon, Georgia 31204. There's also a picture on your screen in that regard. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion in regards to that item? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Got one no, Commissioner Pro Tem Clark. Two with Bronson. Thank you. We got three? Okay. We have three. Let's, okay. We're going to ask for a recount on that. So this time we'll take a roll call vote on new alcohol beverage license for Sprint 5 located at 3927 Napier Avenue. And I'll ask the clerk to take a roll call beginning with Ms. Wynn.
Commissioner Wynn, how do you vote?
No, but I have a question about it before we finish too.
Okay.
Commissioner Bronson, how do you vote? Commissioner Lucas, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder, how do you vote? Commissioner Howell, how do you vote? Commissioner Watkins, how do you vote? Commissioner Tillman, how do you vote?
I'm gonna vote yes, but I want to know if what's the issue.
Yeah.
It's my district. I'm just supporting whatever's in my district. So if there's an issue, let me know. But I'll support it. So I don't know anything on it other than y'all just voting on. So let me know, please, what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Just one more. We'll handle it accordingly. So, Ms. Ross, if you can tell us what that vote is now.
There's 6 noes, 2 yeses.
Pull that picture.
Where is that on that? That's the question.
It's 3927 Napier Avenue. That information is contained in the packet. So, it's down from the roof in place.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, you want to go ahead and respond to that?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say, if it's the will of the commission to deny this license, I just need some reasons that I can articulate in the notice letter that we have to send out to the applicant.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioner Tillman?
I don't frequent the store, but I know where it is now. If that's the one in the curve next to Bland Roofing, if you drive out there, I mean, I think they're doing check, cash, and everything. It's a huge store. Everybody congregates there. I always wonder what's going on, like a party or something every day. But it's usually adults. Nobody's contacted me. I don't know it. I know it's in my district. So the picture does not dictate a good photo because I don't know of much grass around that. I do know there are some guys serving prison time for shooting and killing the previous owner that actually gave them all the money, and he was outside, and they shot and killed this guy. So other than that, I don't really know what issues are happening. We have improved that area around there with North Napier Apartments Management have improved it. We tore a house down within walking distance. We added the new fire station around there and the police precinct. So, if y'all know more than I do, let me know. It is a major store in the area that's in walking distance from the whole Bellevue community. And so if it's something I don't know, y'all let me know.
Commissioner Wynn?
Convenience store, if you will, what, a block and a half down the road from it. This location, it says new alcohol license. It didn't have one before.
Commissioner Wynn, we
I can't remember.
just as a reminder, you're going to see these new alcohol license, beverage license for either new business or new to that owner, which means you have a transfer of ownership in that
Case
business.
of ownership transfer.
That's correct. Since this business has been there for quite some time now, it's been selling alcohol for a while. But because of the transfer of ownership in your packet, it has that information, including the survey.
I just don't really have a legal reason, Attorney McNeil, but I just don't like it. But if I have to vote yes, I will. Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for clearing this up, and if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider.
Okay, let's hear from the attorney first.
I was just going to answer to confirm that this is a transfer of location and transfer of ownership license.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Watkins, did you have something?
Previous meetings, we established like a new set of questions to ask about change of ownership. Did they participate in that question and answer?
I do not have a record if they participated in the question or answer.
So I know earlier when we did this, we discovered that there was legal.
I reviewed this application and did not see any legal issues in this application.
So do they currently participate in Georgia Lottery or COAM?
I only reviewed their application in regards to the alcohol license, not to other licensure.
Commissioner Watkins, I want to make sure that we know that the survey came out after these particular licenses had already went through the process. So this time it may be more appropriate than to reconsider this motion is to table that, send the survey out and revisit this in 2 weeks when we had a chance to review the survey that we've been very consistent on these others to do. This is one that happened, had already been submitted prior to our doing that survey. So is someone want to make a motion to table instead of reconsideration at this time? Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Clark, second by Commissioner Wynn, to table this item for additional information regarding items we discussed today as well as the survey. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries and it will be tabled for additional information in 2 weeks. Thank you. We're going to move on to contracts for implementation or renewal. The first is item 4A. Item 4A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Hughes, Good, O'Leary, and Ryan Incorporated in amount not to exceed $130,955 for the preparation and engineering and design plan for Rosa Parks Square to be paid for by the Rosa Parks Square Fund. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion in that regard? Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, we just need to always have, the name done right on there, so just the Rosa Parks,
Excuse me?
Rosa Parks Square rather than Rosa Square Park. We just need it to be, I'm sure they were gonna get it correct, but
Okay.
that's it. And I certainly support this. This is something that I think citizens will be very, very pleased with as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to consent agenda. We'll move on to item B, which is resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc. for the ARC GIS software licenses in the amount of $240,000. This is a 3-year payable at a rate of $77,500 for year 1, $80,000 for year 2, $82,500 for year 3 for the IT department budget software licenses. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. Board members, we have any questions in this regard or need additional information from anyone? Commissioner Tillman?
Just do we have a new director yet?
No, sir. We do have I have selected a new IT director for my portion, and we'll be bringing that to the commission in about 2 weeks for your consideration, along with all of his information. He needs to let his employer know that he has been selected and go through our normal process. I'll be happy to provide you with all the information, probably at the next meeting as a referral. Thank you. Commissioner Wynn, did you have a question? No? All right.
Me off, I don't think.
Anyone else have a question in regards to this particular item? Seeing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Next, we have the 5-year short-term work program. Item 5A is a resolution approving the submission of the 5-year short-term work program of capital improvement element to the Middle Georgia Regional Commission for compliance review. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Pro Tem Clark. Commissioner Lucas has a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, do we ever go back and look at the plan? You know, this is just really a listing of all the different projects that's in all the different categories of work that government performs. Do we ever, or are we just not required to go back and review to see where we are?
I know we're required to do the plan. Of course, if we ever question, it's going to have to go to someone else because I wasn't here when you did it the last time, so I'm not sure about that. I don't know if Dr. Moffitt or Ms. Moore can speak on that. Certainly, I don't think we're required to go back and look at them, but it's probably best practices that we do look at these to make sure they're
Yeah.
successful in what they're doing.
Good morning, Commissioners. The answer is yes, and for the mere fact that some of the overall items in the plan are things that we are constantly working on. So to say that we do a meeting where we pull the plan out and say A, B, C, and D, I would say no to that, but I would say yes in the fact that item A is something that's already in the budget that we're working on, like at the airport and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, this is really a report that P&Z does for us. So they pull from the Water Authority, which we wouldn't necessarily have the chance to do. Typically, Ken North comes to give you this report. We felt like this time there's enough of the same information, the extension at the airport that's going to be anticipated over the next 5 years, what Middle Georgia Regional Commission is doing, what the Water Authority is doing, what our roads and streets repairs are very broad categories, but P&Z really fulfills this for us as required by law to submit.
Yeah, but we have to do this in order to qualify for a lot of stuff. So it just seems like the final step would be at some point just to take some time and review to see where we are in all of the different areas, not just
ours,
what
because
we're
what they
doing.
use is our CIP list when you all approve it. But yes, if you want a work session maybe of everything that's going on through the multiple entities, I think
I think it would be
timeframe.
interesting information, and because we do help to fund a lot of those other things as well. So
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Lucas. It is a 5-year plan, so we do have some time to take care of that. We do have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. The next item we have is sponsored by Commissioner Tillman. This is item 5A, an ordinance of reestablishing the Eisenhower Business Improvement District to include all properties identified herein along Eisenhower Parkway, running from the intersection of Eisenhower Parkway, I-475, up to and including the Macon Mall. This is sponsored by Commissioner Tillman. Would you like to make that motion?
Motion to approve.
The Commissioner Tillman makes a motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by many others, including Commissioner Clark. This time I'd ask Ms. Arnold to come forward just to give you a brief update about the e-bid, what she's got going on, as well as the accomplishments there, and we'll talk about a little bit about where we go next, and then I'll let Commissioner Lucas speak.
Well, good morning. Thank you guys for having me, and I very much appreciate your support. Commissioner Tillman has been very helpful and very proactive in helping us with the Eisenhower Business Improvement District. We are coming up on our last year, looking to renew. We have experienced much success. In fact, I have a presentation, just a small snippet, some of the accomplishments we've made as far as improvements along the way. If we could show some of those clips for our beautification area. As you can see, this is a map of our 93 parcels running along Eisenhower Parkway. And so just for example, we have a mowing and maintenance agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation. And so with these funds, we maintain regularly the medians and rights-of-way along Eisenhower Parkway. As you can see, just some of the small steps we've made. We continue to maintain that. We have, with the help of Macon-Bibb County, we were able to add 29 streetlights to the area, which was a security initiative, as well as an issue as far as lighting up the area and letting folks see the businesses surrounding the area. If you want to continue, one of our biggest projects and something we're very proud of is the Exit 3, I-475 Exit 3 interchange. We completely redesigned that exit to attract visitors coming off. You know, when someone's driving down the town, we want to say, oh, look at this exit. This is somewhere we want to stop, eat, play, shop, dine. And I believe, so that was one of our initial projects here, what you see where they cleared, where we cleared the area with blight removal grant money actually given to us by Commissioner Tillman and Commissioner Bechtel at the time. You can see a lot of what those funds were used for and see what a difference it's made. All right. And as far as another thing we're proud of and something that our focus will be on the next 6-year term is business recruitment and business retention. So you can see what was once a dilapidated property is now a thriving cookout. And then again, you'll see the Wendy's property. That was an old abandoned racetrack, and now it's a Wendy's. And these are just a couple of the examples of the transformations. Right now, the H.H. Gregg is now Legends Fitness, and that is a very nice establishment. That was a big space to fill, and it was filled. And we are very hopeful that as we move forward, we will continue to attract more businesses. And like I said, a focus that we'll have is business recruitment. We're currently in the middle of doing a market study right now to look at some different options for some of our vacancies. I've worked with a couple of companies as well that will help us find, what does our area need? What do the people, not just what do we need, what do the people in our area want? We want to make sure we're representing the folks in that community and our community and making sure we're bringing in good business there. You can see our wildflower project. In fact, we just seeded for wildflowers about 3 weeks ago, so some of those are beginning to pop up. So we're very excited. We're going through the petition process, and we have recruited the percentage that we need, and it's been very exciting for me to talk to these property owners and hear them support what we're doing. We've got some big spaces that even though, so Eisenhower Crossing, for example, DDR, they're very much in support of moving forward, because they're excited to see what we're going to do for the area.
And Ms. Arnold, could just tell the folks that may not know who you are and what you do there for the bid.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm Jamie Arnold, and I'm the executive director of the Eisenhower Business Improvement District. I have been the executive director since the formation.
Thank you. And we have a deadline of June the 30th to get this taken care of and renewed, and we've already scheduled a call meeting at 1 o'clock on June the 22nd. We must have the petition from Ms. Arnold with us as well before we vote on that, but the 22nd at 1 o'clock after our committee meeting, we have a call meeting because we're required to do that on law, to have a public hearing on that, and then we'll take a vote on that. So, Ms. Lucas, did you have a question?
In line with what you were talking about as far as additional information, would you just tell us briefly how this was set up? And I remember Commissioner Tillman bringing this, and y'all made a presentation, but that's been a while back. Exactly how you're able to do these additional things in that specific area and what the area encompasses.
Okay.
Just for information.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Yes, so while I was not involved in the original formation, I have since been brought up to speed, and it was actually a group of property owners along Eisenhower that were recognizing the blight that was beginning to occur in the vacancies, and they wanted to be proactive in forming it. So by law, the properties got together and they went to each property and spoke with each property, and by law we had to have either 51% of the property owners vote in favor of forming the BID or 51% of the assessed property value in the district. And so we were able to raise the petitions, get the appropriate petitions, and we have done it again for the next term.
And how much more property taxes do these folks pay?
So it is an assessment. It is a 5 mil assessment on 40% assessed value.
In addition
So yes,
what they would normally
so
pay.
they are paying an extra ad valorem property tax, voluntarily self-imposed, with the understanding that it is being invested back into the area. And the beauty of it is that the property owners, we are directed by a board of directors of property owners or their designees. So they are able to make the decisions on what we want to focus on, our efforts. So it is in their hands and their control, of course, with appropriate approval.
Commissioner Lucas, that concludes your question?
Yeah, by the way, your brochure, I took a look at it. It looked good. I'm sure Commissioner Tillman would have liked to have been included in one of the pictures there.
Well, and thank you for saying so. And it was against my will that I was on the front of the brochure, but the board voted on this particular piece because they felt like a lot of our property owners actually live outside of the Macon area, and they felt like for this first piece that we should put a face with a name. And so now we have, which actually Commissioner Tillman's on the other three that we have. We've got marketing initiatives that we'll also be focusing on in the upcoming area. So
okay, it's always a good idea to stroke the person who stroked you.
And he's on 3. Yes, he's on the next 3.
Good. You're okay.
Commissioner Wynn, then I'll close it out with Commissioner Tillman, so some final comments. Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jamie, thanks for being here this morning. It's good to see you again.
Thank you
I
so
commend you on the project so far. I know that that's been a lot of work on your part. I know the public watches some of these meetings just for their information, and you and I talked about this. The Macon Mall property is part of this, and I don't know what the name of that shopping district is, but it was where the Olive Garden was. What is that little?
The Summit at the Mall.
Is that included in this too?
It is.
Okay, and across the street, all those properties across the street, with the exception of, I guess the college is not included in that. Residential and
That's
governmental
right.
things.
Residential and state-funded properties do not pay into it.
Okay, and the marketing is probably your biggest push right now.
Yes, we are very much going to be focusing on marketing. We, in fact, we are about to increase our marketing budget to start working on the marketing. Like I said, our case study we're working on. We've had materials, concepts produced for us.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. I know you're at 51.7%.
51.79.
And that's getting us right over there to get it approved.
And I do expect more.
Okay,
coming
I was going
in.
to say, you're still pushing on some of the others too.
Yeah. And as I'm sitting here this morning waiting, I'm getting emails.
And when
so.
you get through with that section, I got a section of Vineville I want you to work on too, with the improvement district. Thank you for your work and this
Thank
wonderful
you.
brochure. You're right.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Mr. Mayor? I didn't ask her any tough questions.
Thank you, and thank you also for being here, Jamie. Just to go back for commissioners that are not as familiar, this was originated by banker Mark Stevens, who Mark, I don't know if he still serves on our pension board, but Mark Stevens recruited then State Representative Nikki Rondo, Commissioner Virgil Watkins, and myself, trying to see how can we use a model similar up in North Georgia and areas up in Atlanta for businesses to improve their area with a self-imposed tax. And the whole idea was to subsidize what the state route and Macon-Bibb was doing as far as beautifying the area. And so those components came together, and the component has been successful that usually Newtown Macon, who usually leads the way on a lot of initiatives, actually piggybacked on our initiative and created one for downtown. So this is the model that the downtown business district now has. We originally started out as a CID, not a BID. CID is something that's similar, that you need at least 70% of the folks to get on board. It creeped and moved very slowly, so we applied and went back to the BID, meaning that you have to get over 50%. Just so folks know, this BID of the self-imposed tax started at I-475 Eisenhower, and it goes all the way to Oglesby Place at the farmers market. So those folks are included in that particular model, just so y'all know and are familiar with it. We have been a little disappointed of a lot of the big chain stores leaving, but the whole idea, y'all know, is to retain and recruit businesses. Some of these folks that live in this area travel. Target was a big disappointment. They left us. I actually thought they moved to another side of town, but I think Target left altogether. Dick's Sporting Goods left. One of the things that the Industrial Authority has worked on to try to help us is to get Kroger. Kroger is a major arm over there in the Presidential Parkway to sign off. The Industrial Authority has ideas and suggestions on industries coming in to do a model such as businesses and lofts, but Kroger originally signed a deal that says nothing but retail can come in the area, and we are really stuck in that particular debacle because we can't get Kroger to sign off on any industrial coming. The industrial authority can fill those buildings in 6 months. And so the challenge is to continue to show these businesses that we care and these residents that we care. So I just appreciate the hard work and the continuation of making this happen. But I have to go back and just always give kudos to Mark Stevens and Commissioner Watkins, who initially was doing this even before I became a commissioner, and I picked it up. Mark and I met with Hull Story, who owns the mall. And Hull's main goal and focus was, how do we continue to help these African Americans on this side of town? He refused to close the mall. He refused to go to another side of town. And one of the things that we really always wanted was just to remove the barbed wire fence off Eisenhower Parkway at the farmer's market. And I was going to do a resolution, and Mayor Rickard says, please don't do that. I know the commissioner, Mr. Blackwell, and it's never happened. Well, guess what? It's a new day, as Mayor Luster always says, and Mayor Luster has told me that, believe it or not, sooner or later, I don't think I'm letting the cat out the bag, but we're going to own it sooner than later. And hopefully we're going to take that barbed wire fence down. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you. I will say that is another some very positive feedback I received from the business owners, the new administration, and so even the current ones that are serving another term. There has been voiced a lot of pleasure with what the administration that we have right now. So kudos to you guys, and I really appreciate everything y'all are doing too, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. Thank you, Commissioner Tillman, for saying a little bit too much, but I appreciate the comments. We have a lot of great things going on in that part of the county, and we have a lot more exciting news in the near future we hope to announce. But one thing's for certain is you made drastic improvements over there. I live in that area. I shop in that area. I own a business in that area, and I certainly can recognize each and every day the substantial improvements that we've had on Eisenhower Parkway. It's now up to this body of government that we do plan on doing is to help encourage and incentivize other businesses to locate there. And I do think we'll have a plan in the near future to address that, and I think you'll be happy with it. So right now we do have a motion and a second on this issue. We have no further questions. So all those in favor of supporting this motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Will be sent to the consent agenda, and we will have this on for next week, but also we have 22nd, we'll have a called meeting at 1 o'clock after our commission meeting to have a public hearing on this matter. Thank you.
Thank
Going to move on to the next item, which is going to be, here's our clock going off. A ordinance to authorize the appropriation of $721,065 for 2018 SPLOST proceeds, roads and bridges, Bass Road line item for the payment of costs related to additional design work required by the Georgia Department of Transportation in relation to the Bass Road widening project. That's my motion, as well as Ms. Wynn. Ms. Wynn, would you like to make that motion? Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. We have someone here to speak on that today, Mr. Brooks. You speaking on this issue today? You are now. You'll come up to the microphone there. Just give us a little information and background on this item as well as the next item, so we can get some full understanding of what we have before we vote today.
Yes, this 720. I'm Charles Brooks, county engineer. This 721,000 is just be sure we have the funds needed for the phase one, which is the construction between New Forsyth Road and Providence Boulevard.
And this is for the architectural design, and this is going to be funds provided to the Georgia Department of Transportation. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And this was appropriated several years ago already, and this has just come up in our timeline?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Can you go ahead and move on, even though we haven't got there yet, to the next item, so you can go ahead and answer those questions while you're up there on the $2,066,000, actually $2 million plus with similar roads and bridges on Bass Road line item?
That's correct, sir. That is the total design cost for the whole project, preliminary and final design, which is 100% reimbursable by GDOT and the federal government.
Okay.
Back to us. But it has to be earmarked through us because we will be invoiced from the engineer. and then we will submit for reimbursement to GDOT.
Okay, so 100% reimbursable, and this
Yes,
is
sir.
a 64-month plan, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. So we covered those both items. We're just on item A right now, so I'll entertain any questions, or Mr. Brooks will, in regards to item A, if there are any. Seeing no questions, all those in favor of item A, please say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item B. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to approve a modification, number 1, to contract listed with Atlas Company for the provision of additional professional design services as newly required in the Georgia Department of Transportation in connection with the Bass Road widening project, and the additional amount of $2 million plus to be paid for 2018 SPOS revenues, roads and bridges, Bass Road line item. There's a similar motion. Ms. Wynn, would you like to sponsor that motion?
Yes, so moved, please.
Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion in regards to this item? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries unanimously, be sent to the consent agenda. Our next item is an amendment to the code. I'm sorry. Mr. Brooks? You almost got out.
He was in such a hurry. I'm sorry I stopped your progress.
I'm sure she's gonna say something about Jeffersonville Road.
Yeah, you better believe it. I just, now, you know, people don't get the whole story on things. We've just approved, you know, further work on Bass Road. People don't know it's work we already approved previously,
Yes,
but we're
ma'am.
just moving forward. So I want you to just give a brief update on Jeffersonville Road.
Okay, well, Jeffersonville Road is coming along very nicely. We are working through some contract time extensions we're working through. It looks like that the time is going to be pushed back anywhere from about a year from now up to, about a year from now. We're working through that. C.W. Matthews is wanting some time, and we're kind of balking with that, trying to pull that back, looking at the legitimacy of that. The construction is doing well. We're at the Recreation Road now. Middlefield is doing well. There's no problems on it right now. We will have this contract mod number 8's coming because we had very poor material beside the road there at Recreation Road. That's going to have to be removed and replaced. So that's coming. And that's about, I think, $90,000 for contract mod that's on its way. But other than that, it's moving along.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood everything you
Okay.
said. I
ma'am.
got stuck when you said extension and
Yeah,
all
time
of that.
extension. C.W. Matthews has filed for for additional time to complete the contract, and we are negotiating with them about that, what we think is legitimate. It looks like that it's going to be about a year from now before it's completed.
Okay, well, I mean, that was, I think, in the range that was originally discussed. We all knew it was going to probably take a little while longer,
Okay.
but
Yes, ma'am.
these negotiations that you're in,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean, negotiating what?
They are wanting to extend the contract till next year in the end of July, and we think that's not appropriate. We think that they don't deserve all that time that they're asking for. A lot of it's their fault. A lot of this delay we think is their fault. So we're pushing that back till sometime about now, actually, a year from now.
But don't they have a contract with us to perform certain things, and we are paying them
Yes,
to
ma'am.
perform?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
who makes them do what they need to do?
Yes, sir. Our office does. Us and our contractor, Atlas. Our contractor, who is our engineer, and inspector, which is formerly Moreland Altabelli.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, I do hope that that everybody remembers the history on this same Jeffersonville Road, maybe from what, 20, 30 years ago. And it should not take that long for the completion of a road.
We understand.
This distance. So I did not know. You've told me some things that I did not know. It would
Okay.
be interesting it would be, I think, smart of you to keep us apprised of what's going on.
Yes, ma'am.
Because
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Howard, you have something to add?
thank you.
Yeah, in the same vein of what Commissioner Lucas is talking about, I heard you loud and clear, Commissioner, on the Jeffersonville Road, and being on another board in this county, I did some research. There has been some infrastructure stuff that had to be moved, and that's part of the delay. But I've pushed hard on that other board too, so just letting you know that's the gist of the problem.
Commissioner Wynn?
No, that was the same thing I
Okay.
was going to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for being here today, and you're free to leave to your next appointment. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 8, which is amendment to the code. We have an ordinance to amend Chapter 9 of the code, Article 5, Division. This relates to the EMA, Emergency Management of Address and Emergency and I can't talk today. Try it again. Relates to the Emergency and Disaster Management. And I've got Spencer Hawkins here today, who is getting cleaned up, removing his mask, and ready to present this before we take a vote. Take it away,
Thank
sir.
you all. The reason that we are updating this ordinance, it has been just over 7 years since this ordinance has been updated, and in that last 7 years, the Emergency Management Agency has changed and modified to be more effective and, more importantly, more in line with FEMA guidelines and FEMA regulations. One of the big changes to this is we've codified in the ordinance the debris removal and debris management process, which during any disaster is our most expensive process for disaster recovery. So we wanted to make sure that was codified to protect us, the county, and our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Director Hawkins. So we do have this motion. It is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Bronson. Any questions for Mr. Hawkins? I'm sorry. Attorney McNeil, you have something to add?
Sorry, Spencer. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just before this meeting, Spencer kindly pointed out to me a small amendment that needs to be made in Section 2 of the ordinance, where it amends Sections 351, 352, and 353 of the code. Section 353 is actually duplicative. I copied and pasted it in there twice for some reason, and so just as a minor amendment, I would ask that we strike that portion.
And tell me what page that is.
25 and 26 of the ordinance.
Okay. We'll make that clerical change and no substance change. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's
And we'll
just
have
in
that
there
ready for
twice.
next meeting.
Yep.
We do have a motion and second. If there's no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Move on to the next item, which is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the scrap tire abatement reimbursement program grant in the amount of $10,326 from the Environmental Protection Division of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources with no local match requirement. I'll have Dr. Moffitt give a brief synopsis of that before we vote.
Yes, good morning again. I believe a couple of weeks ago I told you that I applied for a grant up to $50,000, and the way the grant works, when they send it back to us, in the application, I had to identify the amounts that we used in the previous year, and so they did a calculation on the weight of that and the fuel charges of that, and came up with the amount in the grant now of a little over $10,000. And so the first phase, based on what we collect, if we collect what we collected last year, we'll be reimbursed this $10,000, and then we'll be able to apply immediately again. So that's how this grant works. From that standpoint. But if we have a great year, we can go up to $50,000. But based on what we collected last year, the current amount is for the $10,000 that's before you today.
Okay. I don't think we're going to have a problem having a great year. Any questions for Dr. Moffitt? No questions. So we've read the motion. Do we have a motion to accept or someone to sponsor that motion? Commissioner Wilder? Is that your motion? I get a second. second by Commissioner Clark. We have a motion and a second. Do you have a question, Commissioner Water? No, sir? I saw your hand go up, man. I thought you had a question. All right. All right, we do have a motion and a second. Thank you for all your hard work on that, Dr. Moffitt. We do believe that we have enough issues in Macon-Bibb County, and we're going to far exceed what we collected last year on the tires. As we know, we got started the scrap tire ordinance last week that y'all approved. We're looking forward to that full implementation of that. I know code enforcement is working on that as we speak today, because we've had some new findings of a lot of tires here recently, and we want to make sure we continue that effort. So we do have a motion and a second. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to the consent agenda. Going to move on to item B, which is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a Council of Accountability Courts Judges State of Georgia grant award from the State of Georgia Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $163,522 with matching funds in the amount of $18,169 awarded to the Macon Judicial Adult Felony Drug Court Program for sustainability to the same form as the hereto attached Exhibit A. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Howell. Any questions on this? We do have someone here that can present on it.
Say what these
Yeah.
are, just for information.
Yes, ma'am. Please step forward. Just tell us who you are and what you're going to present today, and just give us some general information about these accountability courts and these grants so we'll understand what's going on.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Danley, and I'm the data administrator. I'm here for Jennifer Orenstein, our director, who is on vacation. She did ask if there was any questions to give them to her, and she will address them to you accordingly.
Okay. And Ms. Jones, you just tell us just briefly about what they are. Mm-hmm.
Morning, everyone. I am Sharita Jones. These particular grants fund mental health. The first one you read was, I'm sorry?
The drug court program.
Drug court, adult felony drug court. It will actually provide services for treatment providers, drug court funded employees, bus passes, and counseling services. Yes.
Thank you. We have several here. So we have the veterans, we have the mental health, and we have the drug program. Each of those requires a small match, but as you can see, it's relatively small compared to the total amount.
And that match will happen for in-kind personnel salaries.
Okay, good. So any questions in regard to the particular item B that we're on now?
How long have we been getting those grants? Because I think we've been getting them a while.
We have about 5 years now, give or take, 5 years.
And what do you have to do when you want to continue receiving it?
So we need to first make sure we're compliantly spending and following guidelines on the original grants. We apply for the next application each time that it's due, and then they tell us if we get it or not, based on our last year's program. And we'll know if it grows based on the various amount of participants we have each year as well.
Mm-hmm. So these courts, when people come to court and it's determined that that particular person would qualify for additional services, then those folks are assigned. I would be interested in knowing how many people were served last year, and over the length of the grants, the time that we've been receiving them, how many people have been served, and the outcomes. I know you wouldn't use names or anything like that, but I'm talking about general outcomes.
Okay, awesome. I will be happy to get that to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. I do think that's very important that we collect. I know they already started collecting this data, so it's something I think is easily available to us to make sure that the project is successful and sustainable. But we've requested the same data in a different form to make sure that this could be part of additional funding that may be necessary in the future, because it's certainly, if it's working. I do know that at least a couple of the judges, including Judge Colvin, had asked for additional funding for some of these items, because she felt like that those courts were making some substantial improvement, especially the Veterans and Mental Health Court. So I look forward to getting that information as well. In regards to this particular item, we do have a motion and second, and no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a similar item, and it's also a resolution authorizing the acceptance of council accountability courts. This time the amount is $208,889 with matching funds of $23,210, and this is the mental health court program. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion or questions in this regard? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item D is a resolution authorizing acceptance of the same, the Council of Accountability Courts, and this time is $116,717 with matching funds in the amount of $12,969 awarded to the Macon Judicial Circuit Veterans Court Program. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by everyone. And any questions in that regard? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. This next item is an informational item, but we want to make sure you go ahead and have the information, and we'll make a few comments just briefly on there. This is what we heard the last time for the Macon-Bibb County Complete Streets Policy. Ms. Lucas will be Commissioner Lucas will be sponsoring that. We'll visit that in 2 more weeks, but we want to have an opportunity to have you review this, suggest any changes, answer any questions that you have. So I'll let Ms. Lucas expound on that, and then we'll refer that for 2 weeks. Mr. Lucas.
Okay, thank you. As the mayor has said, you were given a thorough presentation on complete streets and this policy. And as he said, and based on his suggestion, we are holding off on approval because we'd like you to take a look at it, see if there are any changes, anything that you're unclear about before we actually vote on it. And so I just submit this to you today and ask you to please review it and just make any suggestions that you might have. The one other thing that I want to say is that the Complete Streets policy will help us to ensure the safety and the most efficient use of resources on our streets, so and save lives. We think it's been endorsed by the Pedestrian Safety Review Board, and we ask for your support.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas, for that. You should have all the information you need, but if not, please let us know in that regard. This does conclude the items on the agenda today. We do have an update from the sheriff. I'd asked Sheriff Davis to be here as well as Warren Selby to provide us updates on what they've been going on with the items that we discussed previously on the rehab and additional changes to the jail that we funded, as well as the any particular progress they've made on the grand jury items that was brought out by the grand jury. So he is here today prepared to issue some remarks on that, answer any questions, and also provide an update on what's been done so far. So Sheriff Davis, we hear from you at this time, sir. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. We're here this morning to give a little update. First of all, we are thankful and glad of the funds that have been provided by the commission to do some of these upgrades in the jail for the cell doors, as well as some of the environmental issues and some of the things that were brought forth in the grand jury presentment, as well as some other things that have come to our attention over the jail. And as we remember, this is an old facility, and every few years, the last time that any substantial upgrades or renovations was done to the jail was about 20 years ago. About 2001, there were a number of upgrades to the roof and some other things. So it's about time to look at some new things. And some of the things that we have looked at are the environmental issues for the health and safety of certainly the inmates, but certainly for the staff that works in the jail, as well as some of the issues that we've been talking about as far as the jail cell doors. Soon as the funds were approved and the commission got behind us doing this, we hit the ground running. We selected the contractor. As you remember, this was sort of an emergency procurement situation, and so we had the contractor standing by, Warren and Associates. They have extensive experience working in jails. They've recently worked in Jones County. They've also worked in the state prison up in Jackson. They've done some other things. And in fact, Warren's company, back when he was a younger guy then, but his
company, Warren and Associates, helped build one of the additions to the jail about 30-something years ago, part of the some more cell additions way back then. So they're somewhat familiar with the systems we have, and Mr. Selby has come in with his staff to do an assessment of what all is needed, and they have begun some of the work, and he'll show you some pictures that they have already started some of the work of shoring up some of the cells and doing some of the other things to put us in compliance and to address the issues with the grand jury presentment earlier this year. I also have some of my staff here, Major Eric Woodford, who oversees the jail operations, and everybody knows Colonel Carswell, as well as Chief Deputy Scarberry, also here if we have any questions. But without any further delay, I'm going to bring Mr. Selby up, because he's sort of the subject matter expert on what we have been doing so far. So I'm going to bring him up to give a little summary and rundown, and then if we have any questions, we'll certainly be here to answer those.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. And that was a long time ago, Miss Lucas. I still had all my hair, and that picture, remember that picture they put up of me for the appeals board or whatever? Y'all made fun of me that night? That was probably back in those days too, so that was a long time ago. So kind of give you, first of all, can we get that first slide? I just want to kind of bring your attention to the layout of the Bibb County LEC. This is a Google Earth photo which will show you the administration building. 666 Oglethorpe Street is the Ray Wilkes Administrative Building. So there's the administrative section, and then as I call the hub and spokes of the facility, you've got blocks A, B, C, D, E, J, K, and then of course there's F back there. So when we first started the assessment and looking at the campus, we approached it in a holistic review. I know the first focus was on doors and locks on the doors, but we also wanted to make sure if we go into these blocks and we repair those doors that the environment is safe for the inmates and for the workers, the Bibb County Sheriff deputies, to be in there as well. So we just needed to make sure that the environmental issues were taken care of. So we've looked at a lot of different things, and the way we approached the building was pretty much from the top down. We looked at the roofing. The roofing is in fairly good shape. It's been replaced, as the sheriff said, that was about 20 years ago, and we have an assessment that we provided on it. We're also looking at the heating and air system. The systems were changed. If you go back in time, the original ABC, Administrative, and E was built back in the late 70s. The plans were actually dated 1976, and it's hard to get your arms around or find anyone in our industry that's still around that was working on a project in 1976, actually. It kind of aged me a little bit because, as the sheriff said, I seem to be one of the last standing that has some memory of some of the work that was done there as well. We also looked at different items in the building as it related to energy savings. As we talked about heating and air system, and certainly that's something we need to make sure of, is the environment in the jail, that we also are aware that you have an energy management contract that has recently done work at the Centralplex, the courthouse, and other places. So we wanted to integrate and make sure we weren't doing something that was going to be paid for in another fashion, that you already have a contract. So we've been looking at that. So now what I want to focus on is really two areas. One is the grand jury list, and the second is the locks and the doors and the jail's blocks themselves. So let me go back again to 1976 when the building was originally built, and there's the locks on these doors are what's called Folger Adams. Okay, that company's no longer around, but the ABC blocks are Folger Adams. And then when you go to the D block, it's a company named Willow, and when you go to J and K, it's a company called Montgomery Technology. So you got to know that I'm working with a lot of moving parts and a lot of different companies to try to figure out what's the best way to do this. So the sheriff's office back some months ago, as you know, had a company come in to look at doing work on these different doors, and they gave a proposal. Well, problem is in our industry is you really have to, it's in the details, and you have to really drill into it to figure out exactly what you need to do to each one, because again, each one's a different manufacturer. And again, I'm not picking on either one, I'm just giving you the report. In the D block, for example, it has a different locking mechanism to where the drop bar actually has a motor that it pushes it down and it locks the door. Well, if you were to ask that company, they think they have the best mousetrap, but unfortunately they don't, because if inmates stuff debris to where that drop bar comes down, it actually burns up the motor. So what they ended up doing in the jail is putting fuses in there so that it would kick the fuse before it burned up the motor. So you go to A, B, and C, and what the inmates are doing there, again, is they're stuffing sheets and all sorts of debris in the drop-down bars, and those are manual drop-downs. So what I want to do is go to the next photo and show you what we're doing to help remedy the issue. Now, this is a photograph of a typical block, and the door being in the open position. This is just a typical door. And let's go to the next slide. Now, the next slide shows the door closed, okay? Now, this might seem pretty elementary, but I just want to remind all of us that doors are secured in the closed position. If I leave you in a room long enough with the vault door open in a bank, you probably find some way to jerry-rig that door to where you can alter it in some fashion. But doors are secured in the closed position, so that's what our focus is. I'm not worried about securing the door in the open position. But unfortunately, these doors have a little bit of wear and tear and age on them to where, you know, there are some issues in the open position and some issues in the closed position. All right, so let's go to the next slide. I'm going to give you a little bit more detail as to drill into what we're talking about. Okay, that is one of the problem areas we have. If that door is either in the open or closed position, that little slot that you see right down at the bottom is on the top of the ledge of the door right there. Believe it or not, inmates have a lot of time on their hands, and they can pack that little hole with lots of debris that keeps that drop bar that I was explaining to you a few minutes ago from dropping and locking properly. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there is the door in the open position, which means you can get to it a lot easier. You can get to that, and that actually is a photograph of some of the debris that's been packed in those in that slot where that drop bar is supposed to come down. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so now there's today. So what we've done, and so what we did is we started yesterday, and we're doing what's called a mock-up. We picked 4 doors in the B block, and we're doing a mock-up on these to show what we can do to keep the inmates from altering or stopping that drop bar from locking properly. Now, that is a steel plate that's been installed on the inside of the door. The door will still operate properly, and then there'll also be plates that'll be put across the other direction. When I say the other direction, as I look at it, it's to my right, inside that area, to keep an inmate from being able to get their hand outside of the door to where they can actually stuff that. Yes, sir, Mr. Bronson?
Pictures here, which block are we looking at right now?
That's the B block.
That's the B block.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying that each block, in a sense, has a different company that handles those locks?
Well, all 4 of the blocks pretty much have the same type sliders and operators. The difference between A, B, C, and D is that A, B, C are mechanical drops, and D is has a motor on it that makes the drop bar and it pushes it down. But again, if you stuff material into that slot to where the motor keeps trying to push the drop bar down, the motor burns up, and that's where the sheriff's office came up with the idea, which was, you know, ingenious, of putting a fuse in there so it blows the fuse before it burns up the motor, so that they know there's something wrong with the door. So I'm going to go back. So that's kind of probably more detail than you wanted to know, Mr. Mayor, as far as what we found and what we're doing, and that's just a small piece of what we've found. So here's what our idea was, and working with Major Woodford and his staff, and they've been very great to work with, we're mocking up 4 cells that we want to use the existing doors and not replace all these doors. The original proposal that came to you is replacing the mechanisms. There's a housing above the doors. It's a large housing, and it has chains and sprockets, and it has motors and all sorts of stuff in it. Well, if you were to replace those today, and as the sheriff said, we do work in Jackson and other facilities, you still have chains and sprockets and motors and those type things. One of the issues you have in ABC is I've tagged it the 6-inch motor. It takes a 6-inch motor to fit into that housing, and where the salespeople will say to you is, well, they don't make that motor anymore. Well, we've got several electric companies in town that will rewind motors. So when the motors burn up, you take the 6-inch motor and you take it to the shop, you get it rewound, and you put it back in. But we also found some 7-inch motors, and we believe that those could be installed if they were needed to be. My point being, the sprockets and the bolts and the mechanisms that are there are really not a lot of new technology out there in the world to change sprockets and chains and those type things. What we're trying to do is to use what you have within the parameters of those motors and sprockets and drop bars and make it to where the inmates can't alter the doors to where they can be locked. Now, there is some new technology that we propose to put in place that actually has changed since then. Red, green lights above each door, so that if the sheriff's deputy walks down through the cell block, they can look and tell if a green light's on, all the doors are closed. So that's some things that we're looking at. Now, so that's the doors. Now, let's go to the grand jury list. Most of the grand jury items were in what we call the control rooms. So you've got 7 control rooms that oversee all these inmates in the LEC. So as we went in there, there were some unsafe items, whether it was electrical, and that was noted on the grand jury list, and other items that we are addressing, and we're moving forward with those as well. If you've been in some of those areas, you'll know that the safety glass that separates the deputies from the inmates, for example, in some places was so damaged that you can't even see down the blocks. So again, we're replacing and doing those type items to make it, that goes back to the environment for the sheriff's deputies as well. So we came on board the end of April. We have covered a lot of ground since the end of April. Here we're the first part of June. We've gotten things analyzed. We're still doing some analysis on the heat and air system because it's pretty complex. That's probably been the toughest rabbit to chase because, as I say, it goes back to the late 70s, and I'm trying to figure out the systems because they got changed in the early 2000s and nobody really has any information on the balancing of the systems. And so again, to give you an example of that, I was sharing with the sheriff yesterday is you go into a building and there's what we call fresh air intake on heat and air systems. And so if you don't understand how the system works and a fan goes out, you may just disconnect the fan because it's not working right and say, well, I don't think that fan's doing anything, let's just cut it off. Well, little do you know, it's an intake, fresh air, and it affects the overall balance. So you may have hot spots, cold spots, and so forth, which is what they have. So again, we're trying to get our arms around the design criteria so we can balance all that out. So probably more than you wanted to know on a Tuesday morning about jail doors and those type things, Mr. Mayor. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Selby. I've got Commissioner Tillman with a comment or question.
Well, we know that we need an AC system. So I think when the AC system goes down, you know, I know we ain't trying to just make everybody comfortable, but usually that's why it's so cold in the hospital, because it tends to hold down and keep down diseases. I got 2 questions first, and I'll come back for others because my stuff is basically minor. Number one, what happened to the old key system? I know we come up with all this fancy stuff now with these locks, but you know, it seemed like maybe we need to go back to the old key system of locking doors. And I just let you answer that one. Is that possible to go back to the old key system versus all this new electronic stuff? Because you got 4 different companies. They come and go. They do a big contract with the government. They're in business, and now they can't get another jail business, so now they're gone. They're out of business.
Well, there's, and I certainly would refer to the sheriff or Major Woodford or any of them about this, but from the building side industry, there's mainly 2 types of doors that you're going to deal with. One's are sliders and 2 are swingers, okay? So you got a swinging door and a sliding. The problem with swinging doors is that if you're in a small facility where you have the manpower to physically have someone take a key and open for an inmate every time you're going to say inmates into the day room, then you're okay. But if you're dealing with a facility that is, 966 plus, almost 1,000 inmates now, and you want a whole block to go out. Plus, there's also another thing that we're looking at too is evac, and as far as getting the inmates out of the facility if you had a fire. I mean, you just don't want somebody with a key running down the hallway trying to open those type doors in a facility of that size. So yes, there are, but let me also say this, there are a lot of doors still in the jail that operate from keys. You can't get in the control rooms without a key. You can't get in a lot of places without an old skeleton type key, but in the cells themselves, Mr. Tillman, it depends on the size of the facility, and I wouldn't normally see a facility like this, or say in Jackson. Now, you do have some that are what we call lockdown cells, and those lockdowns are for any number of reasons. You could have a suicidal inmate, you could have any number of reasons that you need to isolate, and those isolation cells are normally keyed. You definitely want to keep those keyed so that.
Yeah. And the other question, before I just let some other commissioners chime in, is back in the day, I think the bid work, you know, when we're doing work, it's all about the bid, who has the lowest bid. I think in this situation going forward, to commissioners, that we've got to go with quality over bid work at this point.
Well,
Because it has hurt us, I think, possibly, I don't know, over the years, but low bid versus quality of these locks being able to be jammed and like that, it's causing a headache for, I'm sure, all the staff.
Well, let me tell you about the bidding that we've done so far. And to answer your question, we have gotten multiple bids on everything that we've done. So what happens is that because you have a multitude of different locking systems in the building, we contacted each one. Folger Adams is now called something else, but there's another company that we contacted in Alabama that is a Folger Adams representative. We've had them visit the jail. We've had Montgomery Technology visit the jail. In fact, yesterday, Montgomery Technology, who has a current contract with Bibb County to maintain the JK, was on site repairing 12 doors. So to answer your question, we have repaired doors that are properly operating in the last few hours. So what we did is we had Montgomery Tech visit, we had another company that represented Folger Adams, and we had Willow come visit with us, and they all provided proposals. I don't mean this in any fashion. Again, I'm just providing you the information but most all of them want to sell you something new to the tune of about $3.5 million, maybe more, could be more than that. And we did not see that you needed to spend that. I want to be a good steward of your money, and I don't see that you need to do that at this point until we do these mock-ups and we determine that we can make these doors function the way that they should. But we have gotten multiple prices on every trade that's come in, and that's the approach that we have used. Yes, sir.
And maybe this is for Major Warford or the sheriff. What is the purpose of someone trying to jam a door? Are they trying to escape, or they're just trying to, what is their purpose for jamming the door?
Well, all of these the way the jail blocks are made, there are 20 cells in a row in the particular cell block. So if you're in that particular cell block area and you want to sort of roam free into that area, you want to fix that door where it does not lock. There's not a way that they can escape from the facility that just gives them the access to roam around in that particular cell block area. And that's where whenever the doors are not locked and the inmates are able to move around freely, just when you have some issues with assaults and the inmates probably attacking each other. And then there is some issues of safety of the deputy. If the deputy is going down on the block thinking all of the cell doors are locked and shut, and then an inmate is able to open the door and create some kind of problem for the deputy going down. It's more to give them access to move around freely in the cell block area, not to escape from the facility. And just as Mr. Selby said, as Warren said, they have all the time in the world, so they just think of things to disrupt the facility, and that's part of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Commissioner Howell?
Warren, being a general contractor for 25 years or longer, I can appreciate what you're saying, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I can appreciate people bidding on stuff, but sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you need until you get in there and boots on the ground and seeing what you need. And what I see in that picture is a little strategically placed angle iron and some plate metal. And you know, if we're talking about $500, if we're talking about $2,500 to do that, it's a whole lot better to do that than reinvent the wheel. And I can fully relate to parts availability and that. So I want to personally commend you on looking the further step instead of just tearing it out and starting over. I think we're on the right track here.
Well, thank you, and you're exactly right. That's why we're doing these 4 mock-ups in the B block. Is we would like to invite any of you that would like to visit those 4 and lock you in there and see if you can get out of them. I'm just kidding, of course, Sheriff. But you know, the plan is for the Sheriff's Office to reoccupy that area, see how those 4 doors operate. Because you're right, the problem we got is that B block is different than A and D, and they're all a little bit different. So I think once we can get our arms around these and everything works smooth, then we'll be a long way down the road and save a whole lot of money. Because you're exactly right. When they come in and look at them, the first thing everybody says is, "Oh, well, you need to tear all that out and redo it." Well, a sprocket's a sprocket, and a chain's a chain, and a bar door's a bar door. We just got to figure out those details and modify them. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Watkins?
Yes, sir. I was curious on, I don't know if I heard, what is the timeline for completion? And also, like, how often do you encounter this problem? And when you encounter it, how do y'all remedy it?
The completion of the grand jury list will take us about 16 weeks because we have to move from control room to control room. I do not know how to answer your question right now on the blocks because I don't know what I'm going to encounter. It's like Mr. Howell said, we're doing 4 mock-ups, and once I do the 4 mock-ups, I'll have a better idea of the time and material it's going to take to make those doors safe and secure. So I would hope here in the next week or so. We're literally, not only are we mocking up those doors on those 4, the one that I showed you is the one we did yesterday where we took a steel plate and we cut small holes. The holes look bigger in the photo than they really are. And we've actually already modified it where there's no holes next to the door at all. But we're also going to use a 11 gauge. A 12 gauge is what is required in jails, but we're even going to gauge heavier of a woven mesh so that you can see. The big deal is you don't want to have to walk down a block and not be able to see what an inmate's doing. Because as you walk down right now, you see through the door and you don't want to put something up that obstructs that view. And so we're working with those different items just to try to find out what the best will be there.
Let me ask, and it sounds like I know you're trying to work within the existing structure and you're trying to be a good steward of taxpayer money to, like you mentioned, I don't want to say jerry-rigging some stuff, but, well, okay. And I appreciate your creativity for that. But in the perfect world, I'm sure there is starting from scratch, what is the door that we would use now? Like, what does that look like? Is there a perfect door in Georgia LECs? Or?
No, sir. There's no such thing as a perfect door, and I'm glad you said that because I'm going to go back to what I said when I started. The doors are secure in the closed position. The longer the door stays open, and the sheriff may want to address that, but you got to keep doors closed. If the doors are closed, then they're in a secure position, and it's more susceptible to altering in some fashion if the door's in the open position. So that's our goal, is to get these doors where they do lock and they can't alter them in some fashion. But so if you were to build a new facility, would there be something different? I'm not going to stand here today and tell you that there would not. There is some newer technology. When you go to JK, for example, you have touchscreen computers that you look at and you're electronically operating. When you go to the old east-west blocks, you have the control board that still has some of the knobs that turn. They still have those in facilities all over, and they still work properly. And that's part of what we're going to address next is a control board. And remember me mentioning the red and green light above the door, so when you walk down the block, you can see whether the door's open or closed. That tells a deputy, if I see a red light, I need to kind of back off a minute and just make sure and see what's going on. Because right now you don't know when you walk down that block if somebody has altered a door, and last thing you want is a deputy to walk up on somebody that can open a door on you.
So yeah, the lighting system, or I guess other things with control panels that provide information more so than, I guess, re-equipping or re-securing the locking mechanism of the door seems to be like the winning.
Oh, that facility is. We've remodeled it now 4 times. You can take an old vehicle and overhauled it several times. I mean, to a point, don't get me wrong, I understand. And this facility's got a lot of age, and I'm not saying that, I'm not getting into the issue about whether you need a new facility. I'm just saying there's things that you can do to keep the wheels turning, and that's what we're trying to do, is just keep the wheels turning on the vehicle at this point.
So just for my notes, like, so once y'all get a decision on the 4 mock-ups, like once you've made that decision, I granted it could take several months to make that decision, but after that, stuff moves at a pretty swift pace, or?
Somewhat. And I'm not being evasive because the logistics, I'm gonna give you an example. I personally went to the site yesterday and had several of my guys there because I wanted to make sure that everything started the way it was supposed to. So the first item you get into is getting the welding machines close enough to the building, but they have to be outside because they're producing carbon monoxide, and getting the leads, getting the materials, got to come through the Sally Port. There's deliveries that the sheriff's office is making. That's the B block. I can get into B block and I can do all that, but when I go to A or when I go to another block, it depends on the logistical challenges. It may take a little bit longer in one block than another. But my point is, if we do the 4 mock-ups like you just said, we then know the materials we need and how we're going to do it, and we then can do a little better calculation on how long it will take. But you know, again, each block's a little bit different. And there is, Mr. Watkins, there is again newer technology out there that you would integrate into a new facility, no doubt about it. And we're looking at some of that now. I'm gonna give you an example. One of the problems they're having at the jail is inmates, just because they have, again, a lot of time, they flush sheets or whatever down the toilet, and they stop up the toilet, and you just hit the button, and you do that kind of stuff. Well, the newer technology is twofold. One, in the control room, I can cut your water off. The problem you got there is, for the most part, you cut the whole block off. And the other problem there that I've always seen is that you don't necessarily know that, you know, B200 is flooding until it's all out in the hall and so forth. The other technology, and we've already looked into this, is that after you push that button about 3 times, it cuts your water off. It doesn't cut off Mr. Tillman's or Mr. Howell or whoever. It just cuts your water off. So those are some of the things that we're seeing, and we're suggesting to the sheriff that they can integrate, just like the HVAC that's through the master contract you have.
And I guess my other question was, in the frequency, how often are we encountering locked cell doors or manipulated cell doors in our jail, and what do we do about it when it happens?
That's something that's happening all the time. It's constant, and as long as they have the time, and as Warren said, a closed door is very much harder to manipulate and tamper with and disrupt than an open door. And that's some of the things that that's an issue that our jail deputies are being re-emphasized, to keep those doors shut, except for when an inmate is going in or out, going to the day room or going to court or wherever they may be going. And so that's one of the things that has sort of gotten off the track, that they've left the doors open to give the inmates an opportunity to tamper with them. But now we're going back into shutting the doors. But at any time that you have the inmates around the doors that have the opportunity to disrupt or opportunity to put debris in there, they're going to do it. So what you want to do is make it that much harder for them to do that, hence the plates over the cell doors. And then if they do it, you make it to where that the door can compensate for that and overcome any type of debris that may be in there. And then also, it's a management issue from the deputies on the inmates to keep a watch on what's going on, and to alleviate or stop them from doing it, or prevent them from doing it, and to address it when they do it when it happens.
So just because I'm curious now, I was expecting one else. So like if I don't get an extra day added to my sentence, or sent to a less desirable part of the jail, or have to pay for it from my commissary fund or anything like that, or?
Yeah, well, yes, on all of that, they can get sanctions in the jail. They can be locked back for a period of time, locked in their cell for a period of time. If it is damage done to the block, they can be added a criminal charge to them. Typically, it's an administrative situation where they're locked back in the cell for a number of days. They may get their store call taken away from them. They may get their visitation. There are sanctions, and those are some things on the management side, from the deputy side, that we're beginning to tighten up and make sure that those sanctions are put in place when they do disrupt the cell doors and do things like that.
I know with most things when it comes to criminal justice, it's like repeat offenders is kind of common. Like, so does the same hold true with like door manipulators, or is it, because a man that was in there for 3 days or for the weekend wouldn't dare mess up for that type of thing. So I assume it would be folks that are there for longer hauls that have manipulated the door before. Am I on the right track, or it's a little different?
It's sort of, yeah, if you're in there for a couple of days and you're going to be out, you probably hadn't learned the tricks of messing with the door or tampering with the door. But those that have been in there for a period of time, we have people who have been in there for years awaiting trial. We've talked that talk about how many people we have in jail that are waiting to go to get their day in court. So those individuals really learn how to manipulate the system, how to tamper with things, and so those are the ones that you deal with. But it is so pervasive all throughout the jail. But you have to. That's where the jail management issue comes in, where there are sanctions, and there are also, you have the carrot and the stick. If they want to stay up a little bit later to watch the basketball game or watch some sporting event or something like that, you can say, okay, if you do right and don't disrupt or create any problems, we'll let you stay up an extra hour or things like that. So there are balancing acts that we can do, both punitive and giving them some rewards to get them to do what we need them to do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bronson.
Hey, quick question, Sheriff. First and foremost, thank you guys for what you're doing, by the way. Out of curiosity, right, so you're saying that the doors are manipulated. When are they normally manipulated? Is it closed, open type deal, or when is this normally happening?
Well, as the doors are now, they can be manipulated both when they're closed and open. But typically, it's when they're open is when you can jam. Think about that door runs on a track, and if you can pack things in there while the door is open, that creates a difficulty for it to move down that track, or a difficulty for it to make that final connection. That's where the situation happens when the door is open, to manipulate it. But also, because some of those doors are old and have become worn, and they can there's a little bit of play in them, even if they're shut, even if they're closed, they can jiggle the door and manipulate the door to where it comes off of the bar that is the locking mechanism. Some of those become worn over time, and this and that. And if you jiggle the door enough, it can cause it to open the door to where the door can, where the inmate can just basically slide the door themselves. So, but it's more prevalent to be tampered with when the door is open. But then these other things that these re-engineering, as well as some repairs to some of those worn drop-down bars, will make it much more difficult for them to manipulate the door when it's closed.
Tracking. So out of curiosity, right? Protocol-wise, I know we talk about prevention methods to avoid situations that happen with the inmates, but from the police officer standpoint, from the jailer standpoint, has protocol changed in regards to how we put emphasis on when we walk a prisoner in? Is it the, hey, I need you to go forward 6 feet, stand, face the wall type deal? Has any protocol or training is included with this push for new equipment? Have we looked at that part of it as well?
That's part of it. Major Woodford was transferred back to the jail, and we've changed the jail staff earlier this year to shore up some of the protocols. You have to remember, most of the people that we have working in the jail are newer folks, newer people into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we don't have many of them. Our jail staff is, as short as where we are all over. And so it's that training and having enough people to keep a watch on the blocks, to go in and do block checks and do those sorts of things. So we have some people coming in. We've hired some folks. We even have some of the temporary deputies already starting for us. So we are kind of turning the corner on some of those things to get some people into the jail to go to work.
Yes, sir.
And the training part is a very important part of it too.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Thank you, Sheriff Davis and Mr. Selby, for your presentation today. We'll look forward to getting a couple more dates. I think Commissioner Wynn had a question.
Just a brief follow-up for Warren, please, or the sheriff, it doesn't matter. But, back to the grand jury list of issues. I think there was some fire damage in the kitchen or was some leak with some mold? Are those things being addressed?
They are, and that goes back to the heat and air system. When Major Woodford and I, for example, went into the kitchen and the hoods, the vats there with the steam, you could see the steam was actually coming out and going from under the hood, which the hood is supposed to exhaust. He's already been addressing those type maintenance issues so that that can be taken care of right away. But here's been our approach. I don't want to fix the symptom until I find the source of the problem. If I go in and I replace anything that's the source, or excuse me, the symptom, you'll be right back where you are. I want to fix the source of the problem, and that's, again, been the biggest issue I'm chasing is still the heat and air system and the overall balancing of it, and we're working hard to get to that point. But that is on the radar screen big time.
Okay, because I know the drawers are a big issue, but there were other issues too that they were talking about. So, was there mold in the jail too somewhere?
Well, you know, for example, if you were to go inside that kitchen and you just look on a couple of ceiling tile, there's some surface areas there, but again, it's just from the steam. It's not anything that's an environmental hazard. But again, you've got to get it to where you exhaust that steam out of the building so that you don't have that. If we see anything that we see as a health issue or a hazard, then we will raise our hand immediately and say this needs to be done, and we haven't seen that.
So you're taking care of those things as you work on the doors too?
Yes, ma'am. But again, I want to fix the root of the problem, get everything balanced and working before we go in and make all the cosmetic, is what I would call them, corrections, just so it doesn't come back again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Tillman?
Yes, sir. Just want the sheriff and his team to know, and even commissioners had a conversation with the mayor a while back, and we are working on that recruitment and retention ordinance that we had talked about. Our previous attorney that was working on it actually left, and everything got shifted on to Michael. Matter of fact, everything gets shifted to Michael. And so we're working on that. My final question is, when this work is being done, what do we do with the inmates, or where do they go?
I'm gonna let Major Woodford come up and answer that. He hadn't had a chance to speak, so what do we do with inmates while we work?
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, let me say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Chief, Colonel, and most of all, thank Warren. We brought a guy on that has a world of experience and knowledge, that knows how to work together as a team. So I'm happy about that, and thank you guys for supporting us. Well, when we're working, inmates every day is a challenge. They don't have anything but time all day and all night to figure out what to do, how to do it, how to act right some days, how not to act right some days. And one of the things the sheriff talked about was that carrot. The chief allowed us a couple of weeks ago to say, okay, we're going to take the carrot away. And that store call, when they can't get that stuff they need, it usually gets their attention. Hey, the major's serious. Hey, we got to act right. And then when they realize that carrot is gone, guess what? You get their attention. We give it back, and then now those that don't, we kind of deal with it on an individual block basis. But during this process, there's several cells now that we do go down, and we will put them in that cell and they'll lock. Or there's a certain parameter, meaning not on the bar gate while we're working. They need to be back from the bar gate. But as of right now, while we're doing the mock-ups, we were already thinking ahead. We were thinking down the line, what are we going to do? So that whole run of cells, 20 cells, we have absolutely no one on that 21 cell. We don't even have to worry about inmates on there because there's no inmates that we have to worry about until we can get a true mock-up or a demonstration, whether it be open and closed. And if I tell you we open and closing them 200 times a day, that's a lack of it, because those welders, those people, they are trying their best to give us the best solution that we can come up with. But when we get ready to start the phase of taking out the safety glasses, we're going to put them in the day room. Or we're going to go up and individually put everyone in their cell. We just talked about that this morning, because the methodical approach that Mr. Selby's group and the contractors are taking, these guys are very timeline oriented. One day they're doing this, the next day they're doing things, and they're meeting their benchmark. Mind you, we just started yesterday on physical work that we're started, and they're meeting their benchmarks. Ceiling tiles and grids painting yesterday. Lights were going back in the booths this morning. When you say 8 o'clock, those guys are standing in the parking lot at 7:30. They're waiting on us to let them in at 8 o'clock. But the inmates, they got to get in tune. They are going to have to understand. And the majority of them are happy. They're happy because, as the sheriff said, there are inmates that have been there 4 and 5 years. And one word I don't want to forget is COVID. COVID stopped the whole system. There were no inmates moving. There were no courts going on. But guess what? Sheriff's Jail was still operating. We were still intaking and taking people, doing the very best we can to keep them safe and keep the community safe. Well, thanks to the Honorable Judge Howard Sims, they got 80 inmates that are going to the courthouse tomorrow. They had 30 yesterday. Movement is happening again. I'll be the first to say, in the midst of this, the sheriff, the Bibb County Jail, has started vaccinating their inmates. So we're making major milestones. So again, I am happy that you guys are supporting us. I am happy that we're getting work started to change this thing and turn it around. I can't be much happy. I thank the sheriff for believing in me. He moved me there. Usually you count down, I'm counting up. This is the 18th week. And it seems like eternity. But I am happy to be a part of this team. The sheriff, we started a GED program. We've had chaplains come in and pray for the inmates. Even in the midst of all this stuff going on where it seems like that we're not taking care of them, we hadn't turned the corner. As Warren said in the meeting the other day, I see a light at the end. It's not a train, but I just see a light so far. And we're going to try to get to that end. So any other questions for me? Thank you, sir.
Once again, thank you, commissioners, for indulging us in this. Thank you, Sheriff, for once again coming and being open and transparent with us. And certainly, this won't be the last time we made an effort to get you what we believe that you needed here with the funding mechanism. You made the ask, and we appreciate that. But we're a partner in this, and we want to make sure we get regular updates about the good things that we're going on to make progress on this. So I appreciate everyone's presentation today. That's going to, I see no other questions, and this is not an action item, but it's just an update from the sheriff on what they're doing at the jail. So we certainly appreciate that. We do not have a need to go into executive session today. That's going to conclude the items on our agenda. We did have a work sessions for 2022 budget. I have not received any questions this week on the budget, but if you have any questions, now would be the appropriate time to do it before we adjourn. Commissioner Tillman?
I was just trying to get a point of personal privilege when needed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We'll see if we have any questions on the budget. If not, we'll go ahead and let you start your personal privilege. I see no questions, so Mr. Tillman, go ahead.
I just want to remind folks, as Major Woodford just shared about COVID. COVID is still very serious. I'm saddened today to hear of the passing of State Representative Patty Bentley's husband, Darryl. That family has gone through a lot. As you know, they have a funeral home, and they buried now. She's buried her pastor in Bryant Range. She's buried her father. And so now her husband has passed from complications of COVID-19. And so it is real. And so every commissioner up here has asked this community and public to continue to be safe and become vaccinated. Although the CDC guidelines have put out some things, on this Thursday at 6 o'clock, women of this community will come together over at La Piata on Interstate Drive, promoting, advocating still vaccinations. And so we encourage you to continue to be vaccinated, continue to pray and lift those up, and continue to pray for our State Representative Patty Bentley and her family. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman, and thank you all commissioners today for your questions. Remember, next week we do have a final vote on the budget 2022. If you have any questions between now and then, please reach out and let us know. We expect to have a vote on that next week. Also, we'll send all the agenda items out to you this Friday for the referral to business next week. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, I sent out an email about some initiatives we have coming up, and I certainly want to have some conversations with everyone who's interested about some things that we got going on here. But I appreciate your support today. We've had a good meeting. I look forward to some more site visits after we get through this budget time, so we can start back on our economic and other areas as well. So if you have a place you want to go, you think the commission needs to go as a whole, please let me know. We'll make arrangements to make that happen in the next couple of weeks. I do think it's very fruitful, and we're getting some things out of that, and I'd like to continue doing that. So No further business today that brings us here. This meeting is hereby adjourned.